Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown. And like many of you, I just watched the police news conference where they have now stated that the body found in the River Wire was that of Nicola Bulley. That's all, pretty much all they said. They had a very heartfelt letter from the family about their thoughts at this time and their thoughts on the media and what's been going on the internet and how appalled they were at the whole debacle, shall we say. And I understand why they have that view. They lost a loved one, she was missing, and along with all of that, they had to deal with everything else that really shouldn't have been happening in their world. But now that the press conference is over, we do have an identification of the body that was found. There are many people going out around saying in the internet that it was Nicola Bulley before the police announced that. I think that was wrong. Even if you believed it was, and I certainly did believe it was, we should have waited, all of us, until we got the announcement. And so I want to talk a little bit now about just a few things about what has happened and where I think things went wrong, public misunderstanding, and how this became such an outrageous just an outrageous event where what we had was a woman who went missing in a small town, and it should have remained pretty much that. Understandably, there should be interest by the people in the location, by the family. But the way it was taken over by what I call grifters on the internet, and mind you, I have an internet channel myself, obviously. This is my YouTube channel. I do educational work. But there are those on the internet who don't just do one story or one take on something. They have dozens of videos on a particular incident, and every day they put out every piece of gossip, every unknown, and they encourage people to create theories. They encourage that, and oftentimes encourage them to go out into the community, and that's what happened in this case, and it was abominable. So I suggest anybody who is watching any kind of true crime channel, please take note. If somebody does a video every day on a particular case, that's not a channel you want to spend your time on. Go find a more reputable channel, an educational channel, or don't go for the grifter channels, please, and don't encourage them. That's one thing I want to say. The next thing I want to say is what we don't know as the public, all right? When I did my analysis of this case before the other press conference came out where we got more information, one of the things I had commented on was that we in the public don't know what the police know. And I had given an example. I had said, for example, we don't know if perhaps she had a problem with alcohol that she might have had, like she might have been drinking that morning, might have even had a flask along with her and was sipping it, and that made her movements unstable. I said, of course, I'm just giving an example here of something we might not know. And the police would know. So while we're sitting outside and people are coming up with theories about wild abduction theories, maybe they just don't know what the police know. And that turned out to actually be true, because when they came out eventually and did say this was a concern that the family had about Nicola, and that may have impacted essentially what happened to her. There you go. What we don't know, the police may know. So we should not assume that they're doing the wrong thing. The reason they were so focused on the river was because they knew things. They knew things, those vulnerabilities. They knew about talking with the families, the interviewing. They're inside the case. We are not, unless you are an expert working with the police at that moment in time. So we do not know what they know. So the fact that they were so focused on the river and not focused as much as people wanted on some abduction theory, which they tried to say there's no evidence that she ever left the fields. There's no evidence on any CCTV of her showing up anyplace else. They did do due diligence. I don't care what people say. Maybe not as much as other people thought they should do, but they were talking to people and looking at CCTV and looking at camera stuff. They were. Now, Am I saying that their investigation was perfect? And not necessarily, but they're human beings. They're doing their best with what they have, and they did a lot. And a lot of their work was toward the river because they had no evidence of any other person, any third party being involved. And then they allowed, along with the river searchers, they allowed outside person to search. And I want to comment on what he has to say today. This is Peter Faulding, who I was very upset with during what he had said during the actual investigation. He said this. He had said after he did 3 days worth of work, if Nicola was in the river, I would have found her. She's not there. That's something you don't say. You're telling the family that the police are completely wrong, that they're messing up the investigation. They're not looking toward an abduction to save Nicola from somebody. Then he said this. He also said this during that point in time, that he believed it could be an abduction, and that the phone sitting on the bench and the harness there that was just a decoy. And I thought to myself, that is not how an abductor would have done anything. This isn't, that would be called staging a crime. They wouldn't have done that. It makes zero sense. And I kept saying that doesn't make sense, but I can't tell you how many people wrote to me and said, I think he's right. It's a decoy. This is the stuff the family got too. This is unfair because he's a dive expert. He's not a criminal profiler or detective. And yet he said to the family 3 days in, she's not in the river. I would have found her. And I think it could be an abduction. And that was a decoy. And then that set the internet on fire. It did. But now look what he has to say. He says it would be totally unfair to say he gave the family false hope if the body, as feared, turned out to be missing Ms. Bulley. Well, he did give them false hope. He told them she wasn't in the river, point blank. He added, then he adds this, a body could lodge in the reeds under debris, and you wouldn't see it on any form of sonar, either the police or our sonar. Hey, really? Why didn't you tell the family that 3 days into your thing, into your search? Why didn't you tell the family? I haven't been able to find her, but that doesn't mean, because of the way rivers work, that she could be lodged under something we cannot see with sonar. And the police are trying, and I have tried. Doesn't mean she's not there. Just means we don't know at this point. Why didn't he say that then? So now he says, oh, well, if she was lodged under some reeds, I wouldn't have found her. And then he says his final thing. If a body gets lodged in the reeds, it usually gets found by a dog walker. That's normal. Again, yes, that's true. I've often told people that when you have a missing person and you do even like, let's say a park, a mountain area, a field, and you do a grid search, you have the police, you have the community all out there, walking in a line and trying to make sure they don't miss anything. And they don't find the body. And a year later, 2 years later, guess who finds the body? Dog walker, a hiker. And in the case of Chandra Levy in Washington, D.C., it was a guy looking for turtles, because it's one of those accidental things. If you've got enough people over time who happen to take different paths, somebody might stumble across the body. But this statement, if a body gets lodged in the reeds, it usually gets found by a dog walker. I'm sorry, Mr. Faulding, why didn't you tell the family that back when you gave up your search and said she wasn't in the river? Why didn't you just say, hopefully somebody walking a dog or taking a hike or whatever, maybe they will come up with what happened to Nicola. But he didn't say that back then. So this set, at that time, he just set the internet on fire with his commentary, adding to the police difficulties of dealing with armchair detectives and people literally getting out of those armchairs and going into the community and wreaking havoc. Unbelievable. Now, last thing I want to talk about is Monday morning quarterbacking. And of course, I'm an American, so I'm talking about American football, not British football, UK football. I'm not talking about what we call soccer. I'm talking about football, American football. And the games often are played on Sunday, which is where the term Monday morning quarterbacking came from. That you weren't on the field and you weren't the coach. You weren't out there at the time. But after the game is over, you go back and look at what they didn't do right. And on Monday morning, you go, well, they shouldn't have made that call. They shouldn't have decided to make that play. Well, yeah, easy for you to say because it didn't work out. Same thing is true for the police many times. They are working with what they have, the evidence that they have, the staff that they have. They're doing their best. And I strongly believe, I have been critical sometimes of police investigations, but I've never thought that they didn't care, that they didn't want to solve a crime or to find a missing person. I've never thought that because I have law enforcement in my family and who work as a detectives. And I know that they care and they want to see something correct happen. Sometimes it doesn't turn out the way they would like, but they try their best. So please understand they were working their butts off. And now you say, look back and say, they should have done this, they should have done that. Why didn't they do this? And I do think, during the press conference, I particularly liked how the press conference, not this one, but the one where they described everything that had been going on before the body was found of Nicola. And I thought they did an excellent job, and people were highly, highly critical. And the only thing I thought that went wrong was I think they were bullied into trying to explain why they were looking where they were looking. And so what they did was they went to the vulnerability thing. And I think that was an error, but I think they were trying. I really do. I think they were trying to explain they had reasons for looking in the river. I think they got pressured into that. And then they got pressured to have to explain what the vulnerabilities were. I wish they hadn't gone there. I think that was a misstep. But people make missteps. Departments make missteps. And I think at that point, they were frustrated. And they said, okay, that's why we went that way. And then everybody pressured them. What are the vulnerabilities? So they gave that information up to explain themselves. And of course, at that point, then people go, oh, maybe she did go in the river. But, they can't win now. They can't win for losing now. There's going to be such a critique of everything they did. And some of it I'm okay with. I have no problem with doing the right thing and trying to have for police accountability, to make sure that police departments do the best job they can, and to learn what was done not as well as it could be done so it can be done better in the future. That's what we should do in all jobs. Teachers should have that same thing. How are they teaching? Could they teach better? Doctors, they did this. Could they do something better? Police are no different. And so, yes, should an analysis be done? Fine. But the absolute anger toward this police department, I think, is unjustified. And I'll stand by that. I think they did. 3 weeks is not really a long time to find a body in a river. Let me tell you, especially when things just don't go your way. And they did due diligence in checking out other things. We just don't know every single thing that they did. But I believe they had a 90% reason to believe she was in the river and 10% say, hey, we'll cover that. And they did. And so I hope maybe this will be a lesson also for people on the internet. Stop going to grifter channels. Stop going in every day and listening to every piece of gossip and then adding to that gossip and then taking it out into the real world. If you go to the internet, go there to just learn. Go there to be informed, but by some people who are worth being informed by. Anyway, that's it. I just wanted to say that I'm glad the family has got some closure here. That doesn't bring their loved one back. It's not the answer they wanted, but at least they know. And my thoughts are with them. Anyway, thank you for being here. It is a YouTube channel. Please do subscribe. It is an educational channel. I make an effort to teach criminal profiling, crime scene analysis, and to help people understand what goes on in police investigations and what goes on when one is working on a case, to understand evidence and to understand that any analysis should be based on evidence and not just imagination, shall we say. Thank you for being here, everyone. And again, thoughts out to the Bulley family. Bye-bye.